Lucas Everly was already late picking up his son from aftercare when he saw the woman stumble into traffic and collapse. "Hey!" he shouted, sprinting across the street as cars screeched to a stop. She was lying on the pavement, clutching her ankle, her face twisted in pain. Her designer coat was torn at the sleeve, and her black heels had flown off in different directions. But it was her eyes wide, stunned, beautiful that held him still for a second. Then she tried to sit up and winced, biting her lip. "Don't move," he said, sliding his arms around her carefully. "You're hurt." "I'm fine," she muttered, clearly not fine. "I just twisted my ankle." "Yeah, and nearly got killed," Lucas said, already lifting her. "I'm taking you to the clinic." "I don't need weight. Who are you?" "Lucas, and you're bleeding." "Let's argue later." People stood on the sidewalk watching, but no one moved to help. Lucas didn't care. He just carried her to his beat-up old truck parked a block away. The woman was breathing fast, her head resting against his chest like she wasn't used to being held. She smelled like expensive perfume and something soft, like jasmine. Her dark hair was smooth against his shoulder. As he gently helped her into the passenger seat, she blinked at the inside of his truck. Torn seat, a cracked dashboard, a crayon drawing of a dinosaur taped to the glove box. "This is cozy," she said, voice tight from pain. "Yeah, well, it's not exactly a limo, but it runs. Buckle up, Lucas," she said, testing the name on her tongue. "I'm Madison," he nodded and drove. At the local clinic, Lucas stayed with her while the nurse examined her ankle and cleaned the cut on her arm. Madison didn't complain once, just stared at the ceiling like she had 1,000 places she needed to be. When the nurse stepped out, Lucas spoke. "You okay?" She looked at him. Really looked at him. "Why'd you help me?" Lucas shrugged. "Because you needed help. You don't even know me." "I don't need to. You were hurt." Her lips parted slightly, like she didn't know how to respond to that. "My son's gonna kill me," he muttered, glancing at the time. "I was supposed to pick him up 20 minutes ago. You have a son." "Yeah, Wyatt, he's 7. He stood up. "You gonna be okay if I head out?" She hesitated. "Yeah, I'll call someone." Lucas nodded. "Be careful crossing streets next time." She laughed softly. "I'll keep that in mind." He was gone before she could ask for his last name. The next day, Lucas was rushing through the diner where he worked nights as a cook when someone walked in wearing a navy blue pantsuit and oversized sunglasses. "Madison." He blinked. "What are you?" "I'm fine," she said quickly, holding up her healed arm. "I just wanted to thank you. You came all the way here to thank me. I had someone track your name through the clinic's visitor log." Lucas stared at her. "You what?" "I didn't know your last name," she said. "So I looked it up. Everly, right?" He crossed his arms. "You're persistent." "I'm a CEO," she said simply. "It's literally my job." Lucas blinked. "Of what?" She smiled. "MJ Lux. We own over 30 high-end brands, fashion, tech, wellness, you name it." He just stared. "You're Madison James," she nodded, watching his reaction. He let out a low whistle. "And here I thought you were just some clumsy woman in heels." "I'm both," she said, smiling. He laughed despite himself. "Well, you're welcome, Miss CEO." "I didn't do it for a reward." "I didn't come with a check," she said. "I came to offer you dinner." Lucas blinked. "Dinner? A thank you dinner," she said. "I owe you that much." "I don't really do fancy dinners," he said. She raised an eyebrow. "Do you eat food?" "Yeah, then it's a date." He narrowed his eyes. "Is it?" She grinned, and for a split second, she didn't look like a CEO, she looked like a woman who hadn't smiled in a long time, finally remembering how. "Pick me up at 7, she said, sliding a card across the counter. "And wear something other than an apron." Lucas stood in front of Madison's building at 6:59, Wyatt's hand in his. "Dad, are you sure she's not a supervillain?" Wyatt whispered. Lucas laughed. "Pretty sure." The doorman let them in, and they stepped into a world of marble floors and golden elevators. When Madison appeared, she was wearing a crimson silk dress that made Lucas forget how to breathe. "You brought your son," she said, smiling down at Wyatt. "I didn't have a sitter," Lucas said quickly. "I thought maybe we should reschedule." "No," she said. "He should come." Wyatt beamed. "Sweet. Do they have fries?" "They have truffle fries," Madison said, taking his hand. Dinner was on the rooftop of a private club Lucas couldn't have afforded even if he worked double shifts for 20 years straight. But Madison made them feel like they belonged there. She laughed at Wyatt's dinosaur facts. She asked Lucas about cooking. She didn't once look at her phone. Halfway through the night, Lucas leaned closer. "Why are you really doing this?" She looked at him. "Because you're the first person in a long time who didn't want something from me. And I like how that feels." He watched her for a moment. "You're not what I expected. Neither are you." Their eyes held, and something shifted. And for the first time in years, Lucas felt like maybe, just maybe, he wasn't stuck. Maybe something was beginning. Lucas had never set foot in a place that required a valet just to breathe near the entrance. Yet here he was again with Wyatt in tow, following Madison through the towering glass doors of some exclusive event space nestled between skyscrapers. "I didn't think this was the kind of dinner where you needed a guest list," he murmured, adjusting the collar of his button-down, which still had a stubborn crease from being folded in the back of his closet. "You're not a guest," Madison said without looking back. "You're with me." Wyatt tugged on Lucas's sleeve. "Why is everyone wearing suits that look like they don't know what pizza tastes like?" Lucas tried not to laugh. "Quiet, bud." The room they entered was sleek and humming with quiet elegance. Crystal chandeliers hung like frozen fireworks above a sea of silver and black. Waiters moved like dancers, balancing champagne flutes and tiny plates of food Lucas couldn't name. "Is this a party or an art exhibit?" he asked. "Neither," Madison said, finally turning to face them. "It's a board partner gala. I was supposed to come alone, but after last night, I figured I'd rather have someone real here." Lucas raised an eyebrow. "You brought me to a business event. You're not here for business," she said simply. "You're here so I don't have to fake laugh at bad jokes all night." Wyatt, already distracted by a chocolate fountain in the corner, looked up. "Can I go look at that thing that's pouring candy?" Madison crouched to his level. "Only if you promise to come back with a napkin, not just sticky hands." He gave her a serious nod before darting off. Lucas watched the exchange. "He usually doesn't listen to anyone that fast." She straightened. "I used to babysit my cousins every summer. One of them once hid a hamster inside a cereal box. I learned to give very specific instructions." Lucas couldn't help it, he laughed. "You've got layers. You have no idea." They stepped further into the room and heads began to turn. People whispered, some openly stared. Madison didn't flinch. "Your friends don't seem thrilled I'm here," Lucas said under his breath. "They're not my friends, they're investors, and they're wondering why I brought a man who doesn't own a watch that costs more than their shoes." Lucas blinked. "Wow," she glanced at him. "You want to leave?" "No." He looked at her differently now, like he was seeing how much she carried behind that polished exterior. "You dragged me here, I'm sticking it out." A man in a tuxedo approached them, all forced charm and self-importance. "Madison, darling. I almost didn't recognize you. Who's your companion?" Before Lucas could speak, Madison replied, "This is Lucas. He saved my life." The man blinked. "Oh, well, that's certainly dramatic." "You weren't there," she said. "I was. He carried me off the street when no one else moved." Lucas shifted uncomfortably, but Madison's voice remained even. The man laughed awkwardly, then made a quick excuse and vanished into the crowd. Lucas leaned in. "You didn't have to say all that." "I wanted to," she said. They stood in silence for a moment until Lucas asked, "What's it like being you?" She gave a soft exhale. "It's loud. Even when it's quiet, there's always someone watching, always someone calculating what they can get out of you. But sometimes, someone picks you up off the street, doesn't ask for anything, and suddenly, it doesn't feel so heavy." Lucas swallowed the lump that rose in his throat. Wyatt returned with a napkin in one hand and a chocolate-covered strawberry in the other. "Madison," he said seriously, "you need to try this." She took the offered fruit, bit into it, and closed her eyes. "Okay, that's better than half the deals I closed this quarter." Wyatt beamed. "Told you." After the event, Madison invited them both to her penthouse. Lucas hesitated until she said, "There's a telescope on the balcony. He can see all the stars." Her home was unlike anything Lucas had ever seen. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a piano no one played, and a view of the city that made you forget your problems had corners. Wyatt made a beeline for the telescope, narrating constellations in his own invented mythology. "Do you ever get tired of all this?" Lucas asked, standing beside Madison as she watched Wyatt. "All the time," she said. "But not tonight," he looked at her. "Why tonight?" She turned to him slowly. "Because tonight, there's someone standing next to me who doesn't care what I'm worth." Lucas didn't answer right away. Then, softly, I care more about who you are when no one's looking. She looked away, blinking faster than usual. Lucas stepped back, giving her space. We should go. He's got school tomorrow. Let me get him something before you leave. She disappeared down the hall and returned with a small box wrapped in silver paper. For Wyatt, it's not much. Lucas hesitated. You really don't have to, I want to, she said. It's not about money. He made me laugh tonight, that's rare. Back home, Lucas tucked Wyatt into bed. The boy was already half asleep when he whispered, She's not like the other people in suits. No, Lucas said, brushing his son's hair back. She's not. He turned off the light, but Madison's silhouette against the stars stayed with him long after. The invitation arrived 3 days later, an envelope thicker than anything Lucas had ever pulled from his mailbox. Cream-colored, embossed with gold and sealed with a wax stamp that made him pause before opening it. Inside was a single card. Lucas, it read in clean, deliberate handwriting, I'm hosting a fundraiser this Friday. Come, bring Wyatt. It's black tie, but I'll take care of that. I hope you'll say yes, Madison. Lucas stared at it for a long moment, then folded it and tucked it into his pocket like it was something fragile. Wyatt glanced up from the floor, where he was building a lopsided tower out of mismatched blocks. Is that from her? Lucas nodded. Looks like she wants us to go to another fancy thing. Will there be more chocolate fountains? Probably. Then we're going. Lucas chuckled but didn't argue. His mind was already racing. Black tie, he didn't own a black belt, let alone a tux. And there was no way he could take more hours off work without risking his position at the diner. Still, he found himself dialing the number on the card that was tucked behind the invitation one that connected him to a woman named Elise, who sounded like she'd been managing Madison's life since before Lucas had learned to cook. Elise said we'd be fitted at home, Lucas told Wyatt later that evening, which means someone is coming here to measure us for suits. Wyatt's eyes widened. Like with measuring tape and everything, apparently. That night, Lucas lay awake longer than usual, staring at the ceiling while Wyatt snored softly in the next bed over. He wasn't afraid of tuxedos or rich people. He was afraid of how easy it was starting to feel like he belonged in Madison's orbit, like her world wasn't spinning 1,000 miles above his own. And that feeling was dangerous. Friday arrived fast. A tailor showed up at their door Thursday evening with a garment bag for each of them, and a calm efficiency Lucas found strangely unnerving. When the car came to pick them up, a sleek black town car with leather seats and complimentary bottled water, Wyatt climbed in like he was royalty. Lucas hesitated half a second before following. The venue was a museum turned ballroom for the night. Chandeliers the size of small cars hung from vaulted ceilings. A string quartet played something elegant and mournful near a wall of glass sculptures. Every guest looked like they'd stepped out of a magazine. Madison stood near the center, her gown a deep garnet that caught the light like fire. She wasn't smiling, not exactly, but her posture shifted the second she saw them. You made it, she said, coming closer. You said you'd handle the suits, Lucas replied, tugging at his cuff. I didn't think you meant this. I don't do things halfway, she said, and you clean up well. Wyatt gave her an approving nod. You look like a queen. Madison crouched beside him. Then you must be my knight, he puffed out his chest. I'll protect you from boring people. That's exactly what I need tonight. Lucas watched them, a strange warmth settling behind his ribs. As the evening unfolded, Lucas began to notice things he hadn't seen before. People orbited Madison like planets around a sun, but none of them truly saw her. They complimented her dress, her speech, her company's quarterly surge, but not one person asked how she was doing. Not one treated her like a human being with tired eyes and a nervous habit of tapping her thumb against her side when no one was looking. He leaned in at one point, as she stood beside him on the balcony, catching her breath from another round of empty conversations. Do you ever wish you could disappear for a while? He asked. She turned her head slowly. Every day. I know a place, he said. It's not far, there's a lake, no cell service, just trees and sky. She looked at him like he'd just offered her a secret no one else had ever dared to share. Why haven't you gone there yourself? I can't take Wyatt out of school, he said, and I've got work, But sometimes I drive past it just to remember it's there. She tilted her head. Take me, Lucas blinked. What? Take me there, tomorrow. I'll clear my schedule. You don't strike me as the type who just clears things. For you, I will. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. Don't look so surprised, she said. You saved me once. Let me borrow your escape route. The next morning, just after sunrise, Lucas packed a cooler, a blanket, and 2 folding chairs into the back of his truck. Wyatt was staying with his neighbor, Mrs. Langley, who was more than happy to babysit after Lucas promised to fix her leaky sink on Sunday. Madison arrived wearing jeans and a hoodie, her hair pulled back in a way that made her look 10 years younger and infinitely more human. This is your getaway car, she asked, eyeing the truck. Don't insult her, Lucas said. She's held together with love and duct tape. They drove without music, just whined and the occasional hum of tires over uneven road. Madison didn't check her phone once. The lake was still, glassy, untouched by the world. Lucas spread the blanket near the edge, set out sandwiches and thermoses of coffee, and sat beside her without a word. After a long silence, she whispered, I used to dream of places like this. What happened? I got everything I thought I wanted, she said. And none of it felt like this. Lucas didn't speak. He just handed her a sandwich wrapped in foil and leaned back on his elbows. A quiet settled between them, not awkward, not heavy, just real. She turned toward him. I'm scared. Of what? That I'll start needing this. That I'll start needing you. Lucas met her gaze. Then let's both be scared together. She reached for his hand and neither of them let go. The lake had become their place. Over the next few weeks, Madison returned to it with Lucas and Wyatt whenever she could slip away from the crushing weight of her empire. They never spoke about work there, or money, or board meetings. They just breathed, and for Madison, that was more valuable than anything she'd ever acquired. But the real shift came on a Thursday afternoon when Wyatt brought home a crumpled permission slip for a school art showcase. Lucas barely glanced at it before pinning it to the fridge. He was working double shifts that week to cover repairs on the truck, and the last thing he expected was for anyone else to bring it up, until Madison did. What time does it start? She asked as Wyatt finished his cereal at her kitchen counter, swinging his legs. Lucas frowned. You don't have to worry about that. But I want to go, she said, pouring herself a cup of coffee. He said he's painting something special. Wyatt nodded, grinning. It's a surprise. Lucas scratched the back of his neck. It's not exactly a glamorous event. It's just the gym with paper lanterns and lukewarm lemonade. I've been to enough galas, Madison said. I'd rather see a room full of kids who still believe their drawings matter. Lucas studied her. You're really coming. I already cleared my schedule. That night, Lucas sat on his porch watching the stars blink through the slats in the roof. He hadn't planned any of this. He hadn't expected a woman like Madison to show up in his life, let alone stay. But she had, in ways that couldn't be explained by logic or timing. The next day, Madison showed up at the school just before the showcase began. She wore a denim jacket over a striped shirt, her hair tied back loosely. No one recognized her, but Lucas could see the tension in her shoulders ease as she blended into the crowd like any other parent. Wyatt's painting was near the center. A rough but colorful depiction of 3 figures standing in front of a lake, surrounded by trees that stretched like arms. Madison stared at it, her eyes softening. He titled it Where We're Happy, Lucas said quietly. She didn't reply. She just reached for Wyatt's hand and squeezed it. Afterward, Lucas walked her to her car, the school parking lot buzzing with chatter and the smell of popcorn. I've never been someone's muse before, she said, resting her hand on the door. You're a lot of things people don't expect, Lucas replied. She leaned against the car. I've been thinking about something. He waited, hands in his jacket pockets. I don't want to run anymore, she said. Not from the board, not from my life, not from how I feel about you. Lucas didn't move. And how do you feel? I'm in love with you, she said. And it scares the hell out of me. He stepped closer. You think it doesn't scare me too? She looked up at him. So what do we do with that? We stop pretending it's temporary. Her breath caught. You said you didn't want to be alone anymore, he continued. I don't want to be either, and Wyatt already thinks you're part of the family. She smiled, but it was different this time, not polished. Not practiced, just real. I bought something, she said suddenly. Last week, Lucas raised an eyebrow. What? A building, small, near the lake, he blinked. Why? I want to start something new, a little restaurant. Nothing big, just ours, you cook, I handle the business. Wyatt names the specials. Lucas stared at her, stunned. You're serious? I've never been more, he let out a breath. You're really going to walk away from MJ Lux? I'm not walking away, I'm stepping toward something better. And if it falls apart, I'll still have you. That's the part that matters. He reached for her hand, threading their fingers together. I love you too, he said. I didn't know it until I saw you in that school gym, looking at Wyatt's painting like it was the most important thing in the world. It was, she whispered. That weekend, they drove to the new building. It was small but full of potential, with a wide porch and a view of the lake just beyond a row of trees. Madison walked through it like she was already home, pointing out where the kitchen would go, where they'd put the counter, where Wyatt could hang his drawings. Lucas watched her, heart full. By spring, the restaurant opened with a sign hand painted by Wyatt that read, "The Lake House." Locals came in out of curiosity. Then they kept coming because the food was good and the laughter was real. Lucas manned the stove, Madison handled the books, and Wyatt handed out menus like a prince welcoming guests to his kingdom. One night after closing, Lucas stepped onto the porch where Madison was sitting barefoot, sipping a glass of lemonade. He sat beside her, brushing her knee with his. You really did it, he said. We did. He looked out at the water, the moon reflected in its quiet surface. I never thought I'd have this, he admitted. Not just the restaurant, the life. She leaned her head on his shoulder. You earned it. He wrapped his arm around her. They sat there while the night wrapped around them, not needing anything more than what they had. And for once, neither of them felt like they were falling. They'd already landed right where they belonged. The wind carried the scent of wild lavender across the porch as the last customer pulled away from the gravel lot. Madison leaned against the doorframe, watching Lucas sweep up the walkway with a rhythm that had become second nature. The lake house had been open for nearly 4 months now, and each day stitched them deeper into a life they hadn't known they were missing until they found it. Lucas leaned the broom against the railing. You know the register was short by $20 tonight, he said, glancing over at her. She raised an eyebrow. You think one of the regulars has sticky fingers? No, I think Wyatt gave someone a free slice of pie again. Madison exhaled a short laugh. He said he was doing customer retention. He wrote it on the chalkboard next to the special. Lucas shook his head. You're rubbing off on him. You make that sound like a bad thing. He stepped closer, wiping his hands on a towel. Actually, I think it might be the best thing that's ever happened to us. Madison didn't answer right away. She reached into her back pocket and pulled out a folded envelope. I got this today, she said, holding it out. Lucas took it and opened it carefully, scanning the letter inside. His jaw tensed. MJ Lux wants you back. They're offering to buy me out of the building, triple what I paid. A full return to the board if I want it. Press coverage. Global relaunch. He folded the letter slowly. What did you tell them? I haven't yet. Lucas looked at her, his voice quiet. Do you want that life back? Her eyes searched his. I used to think that was my entire worth, the power, the money, the spotlight. But now, I wake up thinking about whether you've brewed the dark roast or the medium, and which wildflowers Wyatt's going to bring home for the counter vase. Lucas stepped onto the porch, standing directly in front of her. You don't have to give me an answer, he said. But I meant it when I said I loved you. Whether you stay or go, that doesn't change. Madison reached up, placing her hand against his cheek. I'm not going anywhere, she said. I didn't fight this hard to find something real just to walk away when it gets tempting. Lucas kissed her without hesitation, the kind of kiss that didn't ask questions or make promises, it just confirmed everything they already knew. Inside, Wyatt was drawing at the counter with a pencil so worn it was nearly just wood. He looked up when they walked in. Hey, he said, pointing to the page, do you think we can put a tiny library in the back? Like just a shelf with books for people waiting for their food. Madison smiled and knelt beside him. You want to be in charge of it. I already made a list, he said proudly, holding it out. Lucas leaned over to read it. Books about dinosaurs, space, and how to make pancakes like Dad. That's a solid start. They built the shelf that weekend. Madison painted it herself badly and laughed the entire time. Wyatt labeled the sections with crooked stickers, and Lucas stocked it with cookbooks and old science magazines he'd kept from when Wyatt was little. One afternoon in late summer, they hosted a community dinner out on the lawn. Lanterns hung from the trees, and folding tables were set in long rows with mismatched chairs. Madison stood behind the buffet line, ladling out stew and talking to the local librarian like they'd known each other for years. When the sun dipped low and the fireflies began their evening dance, Lucas found her sitting on the edge of the dock, her feet just skimming the lake's surface. He sat beside her, handing her a slice of peach pie wrapped in a napkin. "You ever think about what would have happened if I hadn't been late that day?" he asked. She glanced at him, amused. "You mean the day I almost got flattened by a taxi?" "Yeah, that one." She took a bite of pie, thoughtful. "I think I still would have fallen in love with you eventually." "It just would have taken longer." Lucas leaned back on his palms. "I used to think people like you lived in a different world." "I did," she said, "but it wasn't home." They watched the lake ripple beneath the moonlight, the hum of laughter and music drifting up from the lawn. "Are you happy?" he asked after a moment. She reached over and laced her fingers with his. "I didn't know what that word meant until you and Wyatt taught me." A few weeks later, they hosted a soft wedding ceremony in the backyard of the lake house, just before the leaves turned. No press, no photographers. Just close friends, the regulars from the restaurant, and a few relatives Madison hadn't seen in years but had finally invited home. Wyatt stood between them as they said their vows, holding a ring box like it contained the entire galaxy. Madison wore a dress she'd bought from a local boutique, simple and elegant, and Lucas wore the same suit she'd had tailored for him months ago. When the officiant declared them married, Madison kissed Lucas with a certainty that made everyone else disappear. They danced under the stars, Madison barefoot, Lucas laughing as she spun in the grass. Wyatt dragged them both into a group hug so tight it knocked them over, and they lay in the grass for a while, staring up at the sky as if nothing else existed. 1 year later, the lake house had a waiting list that stretched for weeks. Madison still handled the finances, but now she also taught a free workshop every other Friday on small business management for local teens. Lucas expanded the menu, adding recipes passed down from his grandmother. Wyatt ran the tiny library, which had grown to include a corner for drawings and handmade bookmarks. They didn't need security gates or chauffeurs. They didn't need headlines or launch parties. They had each other. They had the lake. They had a life built from moments that mattered. And that was more than enough to last a lifetime.